No matter how many times I've presented to people in public, no matter how many different audiences, no matter the size of the audience, I nearly always get terrible stage fright prior to going out and doing that presentation. And that comes in a variety of forms. Usually it's just kind of that feeling of anxiety and stress. Your heart's beating really, really fast, and I'm kind of almost hyperventilating. My breathing gets quick and shallow, and my whole body is just a bundle of nerves, kind of readying myself to get out there and present my work. Now, I've been presenting publicly for probably 20 years now, over 20 years if you count grade school and things like that. And even still today, it affects me, whether it's online or whether it's in person. I always get super, super nervous prior to presenting. Now, I started to notice this when I was in class in high school and even in university, that when a teacher would ask to go around the room and present to yourself, or when the teacher asked me specifically a question, I would go from kind of relaxed, chill, just paying attention, trying to take notes and things like that, to kind of this hyper anxious state almost immediately. And my brain just got so clouded with so many different thoughts about how I was going to present myself that it was really hard to control my feelings, my breathing, my heart rate. It was really hard to control my thoughts. And I would just sit there and waiting for my turn to go. And my mind would be going a mile a minute trying to think, how am I going to present myself? Or how am I going to be able to present my answer to this question? And it was really, really stressful. And it was really challenging for me to do that in a way that people are actually going to kind of connect with or understand. And typically when it came around my turn, I would just kind of, and that was it. And I don't know if that's my imagination or if that's really how it came across to my students, but it always felt very just anxiety inducing. Now, in a lot of my classes, I had to do group work or we had to do some sort of presentations during class. And so while most of the time I would just be kind of sitting at the back of the class and silently observing the teacher's lectures or the work that was going on in class, it forced me to be active in the work and in the kind of knowledge that we were trying to acquire. And it was super tough because preparing for those presentations always felt like kind of going to war. I would set up days and days in advance of the presentation, trying to not necessarily rehearse, although rehearsal was part of that or later became part of that, but at least try to prepare myself mentally to get out there in front of the students that I was working with and present my work in a way that was hopefully engaging and connected with them as the audience. And in worst case scenarios, at least to just get through it and try to survive that situation. And for one reason or another, people would look to me to present the work that we would do if we were working in groups in class. And so I started to just take it upon myself when we were agreeing on the roles that we would have in our group. I would just start off by saying, hey, we have a presentation. If you guys are okay with it, I'll do the presentation. And this wasn't because I was super comfortable at presenting at all. If anything, it was like my worst nightmare. But it was always something that nobody else wanted to do. And so I took it upon myself to kind of take that responsibility on and say, hey, don't worry about the presentation. If you guys do some of the other stuff, I'll work on this part, but I'll also present our work at the end of the day. And that gave my collaborators a lot of relief because then they were kind of, they didn't have to worry about the presentation part. And it also gave me a little bit of confidence because it felt like I had control over my participation. So it wasn't just me kind of having presentations forced upon me, but it was me saying, no, I'm going to do this. And even though it's going to suck, and even though I'm not going to necessarily enjoy it very much, I'm still going to try to put myself out there. Now, I am fundamentally an introverted person. Social settings can be really, really exhausting for me, and I always need time to recharge after I have a lot of social interactions. And when I say a lot of social interactions, what I'm talking about here is like having coffee with someone for an hour. That's enough to sap my energy levels for even an entire day, depending on the kind of conversation I'm having and depending on the person I'm having it with. So I am fundamentally an introverted person, even though I don't always come off that way. I've found really good and effective ways of masking my introversion. But so I've found that whenever people see me present, they see me as an extroverted person. But one of the insights I've gained as someone who's presented quite a bit throughout my career is that publicly presenting your work as a researcher or a project or an idea or whatever it is that you want to do is actually a very lonely activity. When I get in front of my students and I'm teaching them about a topic, there's nobody else there with me. I'm alone in that space. So even though there's maybe hundreds of students sitting in the audience, I still feel like I am by myself. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't need time to recharge after I present things, but what I want to point out here is that as a presenter, I don't have the same feeling that I would have if I was actually interacting with a group, like at a party or in some social situation. The dynamics are very, very different. So I think as an introverted person, I think that kind of gives me an advantage when I'm presenting, because being alone in a space is something I'm super, super, super comfortable with. So now presenting and teaching is just part of my professional responsibilities. It's something I do nearly on a daily basis. Certainly there's not a week that goes by that I'm not presenting in some forum, seminar, or teaching in class. And I'm starting to enjoy it. There's aspects of presentation that I really do kind of get some amount of joy or happiness or benefit from. But it doesn't prevent there from being this omnipresent sense of tension and anxiety leading up to those presentations. And I still volunteer to present for anything. When people come to me and say, hey, Anthony, we're bringing this group of researchers or we're bringing this group of entrepreneurs together. Could you do a presentation about this topic or that topic? I almost always say yes, because it's a chance for me to kind of come out of my shell a little bit, to connect with other people and to do something that challenges me fundamentally. It challenges who I am. So the takeaway is just that. I will always be anxious leading up to a presentation, and I think that's a very normal experience for people to have. But I will continue to volunteer to do it because it's something that I'm learning to do every time I do it. Every time I present, I try to do it a little bit better than last time, and I try to think about what was good about it and what needed to be improved, and I try to make those improvements along the way. And so my call to action is to reflect on what do you need to become better when it comes to your ability to speak publicly. Maybe it's just experience. Maybe you kind of like me and you just need to volunteer more to do it. Or maybe it's something about your stage presence that you think you might want to improve. Or maybe it's something about your voice or any other possible aspect of your public speaking. And I would challenge you to try to improve that, whether that's kind of going and taking lessons in drama or in theater, or whether it's taking music lessons so you can learn how to be a performer and a musician. I would challenge you to try to take that on.